Today we're dealing with equations of the absolute value variety. So just a quick refresher on what absolute value is. Absolute value, essentially, it represents the positive distance on a number line, the absolute positive distance on a number line from 0 to a number. So effectively, it just gets rid of any negative signs inside absolute value symbols. The absolute value of -3 is 3, of -17 is 17, of 8 is 8. And in particular, we need to be careful and recognize that absolute value lines do act the same way as brackets do. So in my last example, I'm showing that I have to do what's inside the absolute value lines first. To get 3 minus 11 is a -8, take the absolute value of that result. So because of that, to solve an equation, we need to consider that there are always two possibilities. Either the piece inside the absolute value is positive, or the piece inside the absolute value is negative. So in our first example, what we could do then is we could say that I'm going to create a case 1 and a case 2. To set this up, I'll show you through with example 2. In my case 1, the x minus 3 could be positive, I could solve, or case 2, the x minus 3 could be a negative, which I carry into the brackets and then solve, giving me a second possible solution. I could test both of those and they do both work out. Next example, case 1, I'm going to take my 2x minus 5, make it positive. I'm also going to take my 2x minus 5 and make it negative. For each one, I rearrange mathematically. I get two solutions here, x is equal to 5, or x is equal to 5/3. Again, testing both solutions, they work out. Example 4. Case 1, the x plus 2. It's positive, it stays as an x plus 2. I rearrange, I solve, I end up with x is equal to -4. Case 2, I bring the negative sign in, rearrange and solve. This time I get x is equal to 0. Well, here, when I test each solution for the first time, I notice that both of them give me inaccurate results. So I need to reject both solutions. As with other math that we have looked at, there will always be possibilities of rejecting one or both. You need to test your solutions. My next example, I've got the absolute value of 3x minus 1 is equal to 2x minus 4. I think we're getting the idea. We just rewrite both equations, once with a positive sign, which we need to carry in, the other with a negative sign, which we need to carry in. In this particular example here, again, I get two solutions. I test them both. Unfortunately, they're both rejected. Next example. For the next example, I'm going to use what's going to be called a number line approach. So I'm doing example 2 again, first of all, just to make sure we understand. X minus 3 is kind of like my new 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a number line and I'm going to put 3 right in the middle of it. When I do, I notice that anything that I plug in from the left of 3 to that absolute value equation, it will make the piece inside the absolute value negative. Whereas any number I plug in to the right of the 3, it ends up making the piece inside a positive. So effectively, this is where we're getting our two cases from. The reason I wanted to look at it this way is because sometimes our examples aren't as straightforward as the first 5. So we're going to use this process, this approach, when dealing with any equation which has multiple absolute value signs. And the most we'll get to in this course is just 2 pieces that have absolute value signs in them. The reason we do this is we don't want to do two cases for every single set of absolute value equations, because the more absolute value equations we have, it would make things very, very difficult. So here's an example. I've got an x plus 1, I've got an x minus 3. I'm going to draw a number line for each one. For the x plus 1, -1 is my number. Things to the left are negative, things to the right are positive. For my x minus 3, 3 is the 0. You'll notice that when you look at the two number lines in relation to one another, the -1 number is to the left of the 3 number. This produces for us 3 cases. In case number 1, looking at the number lines, both have negative symbols on them. Case number 2, the x plus 1 has positives, the x minus 3 has negatives. And in case 3, they're both positives. Based on this, I can then go about using my algebra and solving for each one of them. In case 1, I get x is equal to -3. Case 2, something interesting happens. My x's cancel out. I get an impossible statement, so there's no solution there. And in case 3, I go about solving, and I get that my x is equal to 5. Both case 1 and 3, when tested, do work. Well, I hope you have some fun with this. It's a little bit more advanced than what we looked at last day. I've got a little bit of homework for you. I wish you luck with it. Attempt as much as you can before our Wednesday meeting, and I'll see you then to tackle any questions that you might have. Good luck, everyone, and if you haven't already, get out and enjoy the rest of the weekend.